asked about the hierarchy, a lot of questions about the players as well. But I guess we'll start from the first half yesterday because
the game,
we came out, first 10 minutes, I thought we looked good. After that, we gave Arsenal way too much respect. They completely dominated us for that first half, creating chance after chance, camped in our half pretty much for the majority of that first half, and we had no answers to them whatsoever. It was like a world-class team against a completely atrocious team in that first half yesterday, and it was a painful watch. It really was. And I thought the changes maybe that Conte made for the lineup, Sessegnon coming in, nowhere near good enough, albeit he had one of our best chances of the game. Pape Matar, I thought he played well for the show. I actually think he was the better of the two when it comes between him and Højbjerg, but all in all, it was just nowhere near good enough yesterday, and that first half was a complete shambles and embarrassment on that pitch yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a bit of a mix between individuals not being good enough. For example, Sessegnon up against Saka in that one-on-one, he got absolutely done. Martinelli was getting all sorts of joy off Doherty on the right-hand side. And then the midfield three, Xhaka, Partey and Odegaard, especially Odegaard, was causing so much havoc in that little pockets of space behind Sarr and Højbjerg. It's almost as if Sarr and Højbjerg were so busy dealing with Partey and Xhaka, and not just them. You had Zinchenko coming in, cutting inside and creating like a fourth midfielder, and then Odegaard was just having all the joy. He had the freedom.
Field day out there.
He had the freedom of the Spurs stadium in that first half to just do what he wanted. He was found so easily. They found it very easy to break through our pressing system. The only way points were pressing well was when they occasionally they had it in their defensive third, and we were able to nick it on a couple of occasions. But when Arsenal have it down on the floor, it was way too easy for them to play through our press. And so as much as Sarr and Højbjerg tried their best, I actually think Højbjerg improved quite a lot in the second half, and I think Sarr had a fairly solid game throughout. But they and that's with them having a solid game, in my opinion. They still were tactically overrun. It's like we didn't have a plan for what Odegaard was for the positions he was gonna pick up. That was really frustrating for me, because we know he's going to be in that number 10 position in front of the back three. It's like none of the back three were confident enough to go and approach him, and the centre mids were occupied by Partey and Xhaka, and they had their own things to contend with. So it just left. It's almost as if it just left him to have that free role. He wasn't really on Romero's side, so it wasn't really for Romero to go over to him. It was more for kind of Dyer or Longley to come out and go at him. But the problem is, if they leave their position, you got Nketiah running in behind, and he's got a run. He'll have a free run on probably one of Dyer or Longley, depending on which one of those steps out. And that happened a couple of times, to be honest. Nketiah got there and had a couple of chances. So I think tactically we were completely outdone. And as I say, individually it was a big problem. And but having said all of that, which is absolutely true, they obviously did have a chance through Nketiah, which Lloris made a great save after. To be honest, it was his original mistake, which allowed Nketiah to have a chance, and Romero was pretty much all over the place. If you do think about the chances Arsenal had in that first half, they definitely dominated the game and they were cutting through us. But in terms of chances they had that Nketiah chance from our own mistake, and then all the rest were kind of just from outside the box. And to be fair, they were really good efforts. Odegaard had a 25-yarder tipped wide by Lloris. Partey had a 25-yard volley which smacked the post, and then obviously they scored the second goal with another 25-yarder. So it wasn't like they were creating loads of clear-cut opportunities, but they were creating loads of openings, and it was causing us problems, and especially on the side, Martinelli and Saka. But looking at those chances, I can't help escape the feeling that if we don't give them a 1-0 head start like we did early on, do they necessarily? They probably do still take the lead another time, but it doesn't help when you're just chucking the ball in the back of the net like we did. It was inexcusable, that mistake from Lloris. Second time in a North London derby he's done it this season. This one far worse, I actually think, than the last one, which was also really bad.
I think that was his worst mistake in a Spurs shirt yesterday. It was terrible. I mean, what are you doing? What are you doing? The cross comes in from Bukayo Saka. All you need to do is palm it away, and he palms it the other way into the back of the net. I mean, what the hell is that? In a North London derby, it's such a pivotal moment to go 1-0 down. It's an absolute disgrace. And that is the guy that we look to as our leader and as our captain, as our number one goalkeeper. And, you know, he just doesn't fill people with confidence like he used to anymore. And unfortunately, I think his time is done at this football club. I really do, albeit it's not really done because we're going to have to deal with him from now until the end of the season. But he's, as you can see, he is a declining goalkeeper quite rapidly.
Since the World Cup. I mean, look, even before the World Cup, he was making mistakes, but since the World Cup, it's really like rapidly increased. It's like they had the Villa mistake. You've had now he had the early on in this game, he gets charged down by Martinelli. He's taking way too long to release the ball. He ends up just about getting it to Longley, like he pretty much gets nearly tackled. And then obviously he had that bad mistake off Bukayo Saka. And
I was reading
going 1-0 down.
I was reading a tweet from someone, and they were saying, if the goalkeepers were changed yesterday, do you think the result changes?
Potentially. I mean, I think and we'll get into the second half in a minute, but for all the talk of us being atrocious and everything, I think Rams had a brilliant game. You have to give him credit.
In the second half,
he still had a brilliant game.
Top.
He made some top saves. He really did. But
it's the same story over and over again. Why do we have to go 1-0, 2-0 down to start playing football? First half was game over at half time. It's completely game over, and it's like, how many times? Anytime we've come out against a top 6 side this season, this exact same thing has happened. Exact same thing. We've gone 2-0 down, a rally in the second half, make it to save our blushes in terms of performance-wise, but still getting absolutely caned.
But as well, it's true. That's absolutely right. We do keep having to go down to really. It's like when we got nothing to lose and we kind of go for it. But you look at for example, the Newcastle game. We're on top. We're doing well. Lloris makes a howler and 1-0 down, and then we can quickly concede second. Against Liverpool, we're actually playing well. Dyer heads it straight to Salah, and we're all of a sudden 1-0. We're all of a sudden in deficit, and we have to rally again. Again in this game, in the Arsenal game. It was a bit different. We definitely
weren't on top.
Yeah, we weren't on top, but although we started the game okay.
At 0-0, you're in the game.
0-0, you're in the game. You know, as I said, like the chances Arsenal got created. What's it called? The chances Arsenal created were mainly from like outside the box and stuff.
But they still had us camped in our own half. You know
they
what I mean?
did.
They had us penned in big time.
They were dominating. No, I'm not disputing that. But when you're giving away 3 goals like this, you know, it makes it so much easier for the opposition to gain confidence, and it also makes you lose confidence in the same breath. I think Arsenal deserved to be 2-0 up in that first half. Don't get me wrong, but these aren't individual mistakes like someone lost their man or something. These are like gifting goals from. Like unforced errors.
But
like
it's the same.
It's ridiculous.
It's the same as the Jose Mourinho era. It's exactly the same. Once we made one, start games all right. Once you make one mistake, that's it. Game over pretty much. And there's no way back in the game. And it's the same thing now against all the top sides this season. You're looking at the Liverpool game, the Man United game, the Arsenal game, twice against Arsenal. Who else? I don't know. Newcastle. You know, all these teams that we've played this season, it is carbon copy time after time. You know, we just shoot ourselves in the foot every single time with these stupid errors. And it was the same under Jose Mourinho. Once we shot ourselves in the foot with the stupid errors, then we couldn't find ourselves back in the game. And surprise, surprise, it's more or less the same players that are making those mistakes as well.
And it's hard to comprehend with, to be honest. But look, I think the individuals' mistakes are costing us massively. I think tactically was a big problem as well yesterday, but I do think it's less of a problem than the individual mistakes are causing us. Second half, we're going to second half, obviously, we're 2-0 down. Kane, I thought we started the second half with, fast, tried to get back in the game. Kane forcing a save out Ramsdale, Son having opportunity, Sessegnon forcing another brilliant save out Ramsdale. Kulusevski was actually causing lots of trouble down that right hand side. We were looking dangerous, but as you say, I think it was a tale of two goalkeepers. Their goalkeeper was making brilliant saves. Our goalkeeper was chucking in the back of the net. And I think if one of those goals goes in for the beginning of the second half, you never know. But didn't happen for us. And then, to be fair, last 15 minutes or so, was fairly comfortable for Arsenal. Didn't put them under pressure. But for that beginning bit of the
opening
half,
20 minutes of the second half.
Yeah,
was
we
good.
Really looked like we're going to score, and you've got to give Ramsdale credit. He was absolutely brilliant, and it has to be acknowledged that we did go for it, and we did create some chances, and we probably should have scored, to be honest, with some of the chances we created. Didn't happen for us, but you can't live on that fact that we should have scored in the second half when you're already 2-0 down when it keeps happening. It's no longer an excuse. It's happened way too many times. And again, how many times now we've conceded the first two goals? It's happened an incredible amount of times in the last 10 or 11 matches. Literally, Crystal Palace was the only exception, and even in that game, if better finishing from Palace, and it could have been the same. So why we keep having these starts to first halves, why the midfield keeps getting outplayed in the middle of the park, why we're always sitting deep and waiting to go 2-0 down to really give it a go. These are things that Conte has to answer for 100%. He's not blameless in that fact. He has to take responsibility for that, but as well, the fact that we've got players chucking the ball in our own net consistently and giving us mountains to climb at the beginning of games, the players have to take responsibility as well.
The players definitely have to take responsibility, and I think there are players that are not standing up for the cause at the moment. And I, for one, have been disappointed with Pierre-Emile Højbjerg since the World Cup has returned. He was one of our better players at the start of the season. There was a bit of a dip before the World Cup as well, and I've not been too happy with him since the World Cup has finished and Spurs have come back. And at the end of the day, the decisions that maybe Conte made yesterday in terms of line-up, formation, maybe shot us in the foot a little bit, because we were getting completely overrun in midfield. Like you say, Odegaard was running rings around our midfield. We definitely needed an extra man in there, whether that was putting in Bissouma from the start in a midfield three, or giving the instruction to Kane to drop deep, because Kane wasn't really dropping deep in that too much anyway to influence the play when we were in possession. Second half, I thought Kane dramatically improved, and he was pretty much the hub of the team again, and everything that was good for us came through him. You know, that when Ryan Sessegnon went through on goal, that was through Harry Kane. Harry Kane had a chance at Ramsdale early in that second half as well. So Kane was actually orchestrating and pulling the strings in that second half, but there was just too many passengers on that team. Way too many passengers. I thought Doherty did nothing pretty much in the game yesterday. Sessegnon, apart from that one chance, did nothing and completely got overran by Saka. I thought Longley did all right, but again, he was getting the run around from Saka as well a little bit. Martinelli on the other side was giving us no ends of problems. I mean, they just attacked us from every area of the pitch, and every area of the pitch they pretty much dominated us on when they were on top. And when we were on top, we had chances, but we just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. And the amount of time they were on top to the amount of time we were on top was night and day, to be honest. And it was just so hard to watch. It really was so hard to watch, because you knew at half-time it was game over. It was match done.
Arsenal, with their defensive record right now, you can't give them a 2-0 lead and expect to be able to turn that around, especially the way, you know, their back four is playing. They're defending very well. You have to give them credit. They've got a strong back line, very organised, and individually their players are big, strong, all comfortable on the ball, all happy to play under pressure as well. And so when you're gifting them, especially the first goal, and then you're giving them a 2-0 advantage, that is game over, especially when you're playing these top teams. You can't expect to turn it around. And to be fair, And on another day, we wouldn't even have created those chances in the second half. We did well to even do that in that second half, because Arsenal are a very good team. So you can't expect to get back in the game at 2-0. We tried. Second half we did rally, but it wasn't enough at the end of the day. When you're giving a team of that quality a 2-0 head start, you get what you deserve at the end of the day. And Arsenal showed why they're top of the league. They were energetic, they were fast, they were pressing us. I don't like when we tried to play out the back, our ball progression was just nowhere near good enough. They knew exactly where we were going to be, Arsenal. They knew how we play. The automations were there for all to see.
But that's the problem, right? It's just too predictable. Antonio Conte, I mean, he needs to find different ways to play the game. And look, I completely back Conte 100%, and I feel like if he gets the backing and he's the right manager for the job, and I completely understand Conte is a world-class manager, but, you have to look at the manager when things are happening so consistently. Just before we move on to the Twitter reacts, I want to talk about Sonny because another really poor display yesterday, in my opinion. I think I read somewhere where he lost the ball 14 times on the pitch yesterday. It's becoming way too often now. He's had, one or two good games since the start of the season. When are we going to start talking about him seriously coming out of the team?
I think
Richarlison's fit now. Brian Hill has had a couple of good games. I think it's time, man.
I think that when it comes to Sonny, I think last season we were playing when he was playing at his best, and he was running in behind and getting shots on goal. It wasn't about him getting the ball to feet and taking people on and creating things. It was about him being the finisher. He's pretty much a striker last season, running in behind, getting beyond the last defender, and being that player that stretched the opposition defence. I feel like this season, way too often, he's coming deep, going into crowded areas, getting the ball to feet, trying to take people on, trying to hold players off when they're pressing him. And for me, that's not when we saw Son at his best. And I don't know whether that's a tactical issue or a personal issue, but whatever it is not working. And how do we get Son back to that place where he was last season, where he was on the shoulder of the last defender? He was the one stretching the opposition defences and making them think going the other way. Because right now, we have no one running in behind and making the opposition defences think. Because Kane likes the ball to feet, Kulusevski likes the ball to feet, and Son should be the one that is the one kind of going making the runs beyond, getting in behind. Right now, that's not happening. And it's hard to put your finger on why. And if it isn't happening, and if he's going to continue to play this role, then he's not good enough. Quite frankly, he's not strong enough on the ball. I don't think he's good enough in close areas. So we do have to think about taking him out of the team if it's going to persist like this. And Richarlison might be a better fit. But I think Conte has to take a lot of blame for that, because I don't see what the tactic is right now to get Sonny involved. I feel like Sonny is playing a role not suited to him. And to be honest, I said this last season when he was playing in that role, when he was adjusting to it. He was struggling. There was a point in the middle of the season where he was adjusting to this role, playing more centrally in those areas, and I didn't feel like it was most suited to him, because it was when players are more around him and he wasn't getting those goal-scoring areas. But he adjusted to it later in the season. He was finding those runs in behind, and he was doing brilliantly, and obviously ended up getting the Golden Boot. But that has dried up massively this season. And why he keeps coming deep. And I feel like as well it might be something to do with the fact that we can't progress the ball as well as we did last season for one reason or another. We're not getting the ball up quickly enough, and it might be forcing Son to come a lot deeper than he wants to, and that's a team functioning issue. And I think that's a big cause of Son's drop in form. Having said that, if he's not able to play within the system right now, then I think Richarlison needs a run.
Yeah, I completely agree. Do you think that if Richarlison had the same amount of minutes as Sonny has had this season, we would be seeing a much better Richarlison and more attacking returns from Richarlison?
I'd like to think he'd get more than 4 goals.
Yeah, you would think so, wouldn't
I'd
you?
like to think so. We don't. Obviously, we don't know, but Richarlison, to be fair as well, hasn't really been very clinical, but he's been playing in his least favoured position.
Yeah, and also has only had really a bit part role, and he's had obviously injuries that have stifled him massively.
Yeah, he did have a run near the beginning of the season where he took Kulusevski out of the team and he was playing quite consistently, but then he got injured. But I don't know. It's hard to say. Because I also feel like Richarlison. I think Richarlison would be more suited to that role, but I also think in crowded spaces, like Richarlison's first touch and his passing has a lot to be desired. So I do kind of feel like we'd be having the same issues with Richarlison there as well. I don't think right now it's a I think going forward, obviously we've got the great players and we do score goals, but I feel like the passing out the back and the progressing into midfield is causing lots of issues. It's not good enough right now, and that's a manager and an individual issue, and that will lead a better functioning team will lead to better functioning attackers, in my opinion. So I think we'd have similar issues with Richarlison. I don't think he'd start killing it if we put him in.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, I think that maybe we would have a few more attacking returns under Richarlison, but it's hard to say, isn't it? It's really hard to say because let's be honest, like even when he has played Richarlison, he hasn't been the greatest. So I don't know. I'm just at a loss for words in terms of the way Spurs are going and where we're going as a football club right now.